Hi, everybody. We're going to do some more guided reading and note-taking today. And today we're going to be reading Chapter 5, and we're going to be reading sections 4, 5, and 6. So if you haven't already read sections 1, 2, and 3, you should make sure to work on that first before we move on. So what you're going to need is TCI. So you can get to TCI by going to Clever, of course. Click the purple icon there. It'll bring you to TCI. And then go to Lesson 5, which is actually Chapter 5. So go to that. And then for this section, we're going to go to Section 4. It's called Social Structure. Now, because we don't have our ISN notes, the actual hard copies with us, we're just going to do the notes down here as we go along. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is read this section. It's called Social Structure. And remember, we've been learning about all the things that make a civilization a civilization. And we're really asking ourselves, did Sumer, ancient Sumer, does it qualify as a true civilization? All right, so let's read this section first. So read along with me and make sure you get to this page before we go any further. So pause this if you need to get to this section. Social structure. Civilizations have a complex organization or social structure. A social structure includes different jobs and social levels. People at higher levels have greater status than others. Archaeologists have found evidence that several classes of people lived in Sumer. At the top level were priests, landowners, and government officials. These people had the largest and most luxurious homes near the center of the city. Their houses were 2 stories high. Evidence suggests that these mud houses had whitewashed walls. So that's the top level in this organization, this social structure. So that's the top. So now we're going to learn about the people in the middle. At the middle level were merchants and artisans. If we click these blue links, we can learn what merchants and artisans are. So a merchant is a person who makes money by selling goods. And if we click it again, it'll go away. An artisan is a craft person. So somebody who makes things, a craft person. Among the artisans were skilled metal workers. They work with such metals as gold, silver, tin, lead, copper, and bronze. Out of these materials, they made swords and arrowheads for the army. They made tools like plows and hoes for farmers. They also made luxury items, such as mirrors and jewelry for the upper class. The middle class also included farmers and fishers. They lived in small mud brick houses at the edge of the city. Farmers often worked to build or repair the irrigation systems. That's the system that moves water around. In times of war, they were forced to serve in the army. At the bottom level of the social structure were slaves. They lived in their owners' homes and had no property of their own. All right, so that's section 4. Now we're going to scroll down to the notes. So it says the directions are in the ladder below, list the people who lived at each status level of the Sumerian social structure. Next to each description, draw a symbol that represents that class. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label the people who lived at the top. So I'm going to click this button right there, and then I'm going to click a box so we have a text box. Now, who lived at the top of the Sumerian social structure? Well, the priests did. Those are people who were part of the religion. The landowners did. Those are people who own land. And also government officials. They also were at the top of this social structure. All right, so we're going to put those right there. Now, who was at the middle of the social structure at the status level among the ancient Sumerians? So the middle were merchants, people who sold stuff, and artisans. Those are craftspeople. Now there were some other people too in the middle. The other people were farmers and fishermen. We're going to put those there as well. So we can move these people around. We can also make them bigger if we want, just like that. Okay, so this is the two parts of our social structure here. The third group is at the bottom, and those were slaves, right? So these are people who were forced to work for other people. So this is our structure. We have a top with priests and landowners and government officials. Definitely the king would have been at the top, or the queen. Then we've got a middle section for merchants and artisans and farmers and fishermen, and then a bottom section of people who are slaves. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. Now let's do the next part of this. It says, describe how each of the classes you described lived. All right, so we're going to say, remember, the people at the top were the priests, the landowners, and government officials. How did they live? Well, they had the nicest homes and lived in the center of the city. Now I'm going to scroll up and show you where I got that from. So if we look at the reading here, it says, at the top were priests, landowners, and government officials. These people had the largest and most luxurious homes near the center of the city. So anything from the notes is coming from the actual reading. Now the people in the middle, how did they live? Well, the merchants and artisans made and sold tools and luxury items. The farmers and fishermen lived in small houses, and the farmers served in the army. So you should be typing this along with me as I go along. Now remember, at the bottom were the slaves. And the slaves had no property, and they lived with their owners. All right. Now, you'll see if you scroll down further that there's a box here. We're not going to do this box because we're not doing this activity. Okay, now we're going to read section 5. So go back up to the top. Pause this if you need to take a break. But now we're going to read section 5, and we're going to do the notes for section 5. So I'm going to go to section 5 here, and it's called government. All civilizations have a system of government to direct people's behavior and make life orderly. Sumerian city-states were ruled by kings. The Sumerians believed that their gods chose these kings. This belief made kings very powerful. It also helped to reinforce the social order because obeying the will of the gods was one of the Sumerians' strongest beliefs. Sumerian kings enforced the laws and collected taxes. They built temples and made sure irrigation systems were maintained. A king also led his city-state's army. All the city-states needed armies because of constant fighting over land boundaries and the use of water. Leading the army was one of the king's most important jobs. A Sumerian army included both professional soldiers, those are soldiers who get paid and who are soldiers all the time, and the Sumerian army also included temporary citizen soldiers. Some were foot soldiers. Others drove chariots, which were wheeled vehicles pulled by horses. Kings appointed officials to help with certain duties. Governors ruled the outlying towns. Scribes helped record laws. If we click this blue link, we'll find out what a scribe is. A scribe is a person who writes. So scribes helped record laws. The Sumerians were the first people to develop a system of written laws. One special group of officials patrolled the canals. They looked for damage and made sure that farmers did not take water illegally. That means they made sure that farmers did not take water when they were not allowed to. Okay, so now that we've read about government, let's scroll down and look at some of the notes here. So we're going to do these first two questions. The first question is, why did religious beliefs in Sumer make the government powerful? Why did religious beliefs in Sumer make the government more powerful? Well, religious beliefs made the government more powerful because people believed that the king was the king because the gods had chosen him. So we can write in here for why did religious beliefs in Sumer make the government more powerful? Religious beliefs made the government more powerful because the Sumerian people obeyed the will of their gods, and they believed that the gods chose the kings. So the government, which was ruled by the king, was more powerful in each city-state because the people believed that this king got his power from the gods. And they believed in a lot of different gods, not just one god. Okay, let's read the next question, the last question. List all of the duties of the government in Sumerian city-states. Which of these duties do you think was the most important? Explain why you chose this duty. All right, so let's list all the duties of government in these Sumerian city-states that we read about. Well, government duties, I'm just going to do it like that. We're going to have a list here. So they recorded and enforced laws. They collected taxes. So that means they collected money and food from the people as a tax. That's something that the people owe to the government. They also built temples. So these are the religious places where people worship their gods. They maintained the canals and the irrigation system. Remember, this is really important, to maintain the irrigation system. They also led the army, which is important because we've learned about how city-states were at war with each other, often over water. So these are a number of different roles, different duties that the government in Sumerian city-states had. Now, you should pick which of these duties do you think was the most important, and then below here you're going to write why you chose that duty. So pause the video right now and work on that. Okay, now we're going to move on to the last section for this video, section 6. Let's read section 6 together. Religion. All civilizations have some kind of religious system. A religious system includes both a set of beliefs, usually in a god or gods, and forms of worship. In Sumer, religious beliefs influenced every part of daily life. The Sumerians tried to please their gods in all things, from growing crops to settling disputes, which means conflicts. Religion bound the people together in a common way of life. The ancient Sumerians expressed their religious beliefs by constructing or building temples and religious towers called ziggurats. It was the king's duty to build and maintain these ziggurats. The towers were platforms made of mud bricks with shrines on the highest tier. Ziggurats were so large that they could be seen from 20 miles away. Some were as high as 8 stories, that means about 80 feet high, and as wide as 200 feet. The Sumerians believed that their gods lived in the ziggurats, most likely in the special shrines at the top of them, and they kind of looked like pyramids. Attached to the outside walls of each ziggurat was a long staircase that the gods could use to climb down to earth. Kings and priests stood inside the towers to ask for the gods' blessings. Sumerian statues also expressed religious beliefs. Many of these statues were detailed and lifelike. They showed people worshiping the gods, often with eyes gazing upward. The Sumerians believed that the gods were pleased when people showed these signs of devotion or love and obedience. The Sumerians had many kinds of religious ceremonies. Often musicians played at these ceremonies. Some ceremonies may have involved human sacrifice, the ritual killing of a person as an offering to the gods. All right, now we've learned a little bit about Sumerian religion. Let's go down and take some notes together. So the first question is, what is a religious system? That's a good question. A religious system is the worship practices and set of beliefs for a people. So a religious system, it's like a religion. We're talking about a religion. It describes the worship practices, so the way that people worship the gods or God that they believe in, and also the set of beliefs, so the things that people believe. Okay, let's answer the second question and take some notes. Why was religion important in Sumer? That's a really good question. Why was religion important? Religion was important because it influenced every part of daily life. And I know that because I got that from this reading here. You can see how the Sumerians really tried to please their gods in all things, from growing crops to settling disputes. Religion bound the people together in a common way of life. We read about how the Sumerians built these huge ziggurats, which were like these giant pyramids. So you can see that religion really did influence the way people lived and how they built their cities. Okay, so that's it for today's guided reading and notes. If you need to go back and read any other sections over again or finish the notes, you can rewind and watch this video as many times as you like. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.